Hello everybody, it's Silver. This is Wanderstop. So in this game you run a tea shop, although that's not entirely exactly what you do. There's a little bit more to it than that. Basically this is a game that is, if you're expecting like a detailed management sim that's about running a business, that's not what we're actually looking at here. This is almost like a visual novel, really. It's more about the dialogue between characters and stuff, although there are still some mechanics that you will interact with that are important. But first off, how it all actually looks, because the art style of this game is very impressive to me. It is extremely pretty, and I think a lot of it can be boiled down if you look at the character models. You kind of get the way that the whole game is going to look. The character models are nicely detailed, very stylized, and super colorful. However, it's also not photorealistic in any way. Pretty much all of the textures and stuff that you're going to be seeing are all just highly stylized, very kind of heavily shaded is what I would call the art style, I think. And it looks great. It looks absolutely fantastic, and this extends away from the character models and into the environments themselves. The environment that you're in is absolutely gorgeous. It's got this super big, beautiful willow tree right in the center of it that sort of catches your eye as soon as you start the game, and you've also got things like the huge whimsical apparatus that you use to brew tea, and it all just looks fantastic. The stylization, I would say, is, a little bit Studio Ghibli, a little bit Dr. Seuss, and kind of just in general very colorful and interesting looking. The soundscape for the game is also interesting because it's probably not exactly what you would expect. I think just looking at the game, you would expect these like chill beats and sort of like lo-fi stuff and maybe some whimsical, silly, cartoonish music in the background, stuff like that. But really, a lot of the music in the background is atmospheric. It is very much, like I said, in the background. It's something that blends in. It doesn't really draw attention to itself. However, you do have this crazy-looking sort of jukebox gramophone hybrid thing in the tea shop that you can actually tune. It's a radio, and you can tune it to various stations to give you the shop some background music as well. But even this is kind of loungy, little jazz, a little chill, little unusual in a lot of ways. It's just kind of an interesting soundscape where I think you would expect some somewhat colorful, bombastic music, some very loud stuff. You don't get that, and instead you get this super chill soundtrack that is pretty much always going in the background, but in a way that it makes it sort of an atmospheric ambient addition to the game itself rather than something that draws a lot of attention to itself on its own. So the basic gameplay loop here is a pretty simple one. You will have people come to the tea house and need some tea or some conversation and some tea, and then you will give them exactly what they need. Basically, they'll tell you, hey, I want a tea that has this in it, and it's your job to figure out what that is, go grow it in a garden, plop it into a huge tea machine that's 2 stories tall, and then brew some tea. You will then bring them the tea that they asked for, they'll judge it to see if it is indeed what they specifically asked for or not, and then probably have some really interesting conversation with you that is surrounding some of their story and why they're there. Because the thing about the Wanderstop, the tea shop that you're actually in, it's kind of in this liminal space between adventures and between lives. It's a place where people just kind of wander through this forest and end up, that it allows them to take a break from whatever their story is and then come to this kind of neutral location to just chill out for a while. And you'll get several different characters that will be walking around at a time. It's almost like Dark Souls rules, kind of, where in the Dark Souls universe, you have people that phase in and out of existence depending on if their timeline is crossing with yours or not. It's kind of like that, actually. And you'll get various orders from each character. You'll get a bunch of character development from them and some stories about who they are and why they're here, and maybe learn a few things about yourself along the way. And then eventually, everyone will stop talking. They'll just go silent. And at this point, you will sort of meditate around this willow tree, but in front of this big sort of statue altar thing. And then the clearing that you're in will change its appearance. All the colors will change. The location of different things like gazebos and garden fields and stuff will all change. And sometimes new stuff will be added as well. And then you'll get a new selection of customers that are completely different from the first selection of customers, so none of them return, and instead you get an entirely new batch. This means that pretty much everything in this game is ephemeral. It's all passing slowly by. You will help these customers, and then one day they won't be there anymore, and a new selection of customers will be there, and that's totally okay because that's how this place works. It's this interesting, bittersweet experience where you're only allowed to know a little bit of each of these character stories because none of them hang around long enough for you to get to know them extremely well. Instead, it's about getting a little dive into their world and then letting them go and getting a new person. The main mechanics that you're going to be interacting with, aside from simply talking to people, the things that you're going to be actually putting effort into doing, are mostly growing fruits, because a lot of people want a tea with a specific fruit in it. And there is this sort of plant hybridization system that you got to get used to how it works in this game. Basically, you can plant stuff pretty much anywhere. You've got seeds all around the place that are colorful, and each color grows a certain type of plant. You can then hybridize two of these together, making a small hybrid plant, where you plant one specific kind of one color of plant in the middle, and then one other color on the outside in sort of a straight line on either side of it in this sort of hex grid that is on the ground. And when you do that, it creates a hybrid plant that looks unique to each different color combination and will grow seeds of both colors. You can then use these seeds of all the various colors to create large hybrid plants, because these are the ones that make fruit. You simply put one color in the middle and then three of a second color in a sort of triangular pattern around them. And when you do this, it creates the large hybrid. You water it and it bears fruit for you. Also, all plants have sort of a glow to them, both the small and large hybrids, and as you water them multiple times and they keep giving you their product, whatever it is they have, eventually this glow will disappear and they'll stop providing you stuff and you've got to make more, so you can't get an infinite supply of stuff from a single plant. Although you can do things like use these flower pots to pick up and move plants to other locations, including decorative locations, so once a plant is done providing, you can just decorate with it instead. You can also use the plant cutters to just cut it down if you want to, if you're an absolutely unbelievable monster. You will, of course, also need tea leaves, and you'll find lots and lots of tea plants that grow all around the place. And you've got a tea basket. You can go around the area and swipe it at these plants to collect the leaves. And once you have enough leaves in the basket, you can take them to these drying baskets in the back of the shop, and then a timer will start. And eventually, once this timer is done, you'll have 2 dried tea balls, and you can use 1 ball per batch of tea that you want to make. So the actual tea production process is pretty involved, which I like since it's central to what you're doing. I like that they made it kind of this interesting mechanical thing. You will climb this ladder all the way to the top floor and then pull this rope that comes out of the ceiling to pour a bunch of water into this huge tea-making apparatus in the middle of the shop. You'll then climb down a little bit and use a bellows to heat up the water in the infuser so that you can get it boiling at the correct temperature. Once it's the right temperature, you will kick a valve which will send it to this big sort of infusing area where you will put in the tea ball and then whatever fruits or ingredients that you want to put in. Sometimes, by the way, the ingredients you're encouraged to put in aren't even edible, but they still make good tea, like say a book. And then once you've got all the proper ingredients in there, you then kick a final valve which will send the tea down to this pouring mechanism. And you have to actually get a teacup and plop it down on this grate and then hold another rope down to pour the tea. And what you want to do is basically hold it down until the tea starts exiting this big spiral spout. And right as soon as it exits the spout, you let go of the lever, and at that point you will get a perfect cup of tea with no overflow. But also overflow is never wasted, because the grate goes into the tree that this huge tea infusion mechanism is based around. So as you pour excess tea into the grate, it actually causes flowers to sprout all over the tree. You'll then pick up your cup of tea and deliver it to the customer, and then have some nice conversation with them based on the tea or based on whatever it is they wanted to tell you about themselves or something like that. You can also, by the way, drink the tea yourself. This is why I always put up enough water to make 2 cups of tea, one for the customer and then one for your main character. And your main character is actually voice acted in this game, and she's voice acted quite well. So you can take any type of tea that you want, go and find a bench outside and sit on the bench, and you will then start to drink the tea, and then your character will give her thoughts on something. Sometimes the tea will spark a certain kind of memory, and so when you drink it, your character will say something regarding that memory. Sometimes it'll be focused entirely on the taste of the tea itself, usually if it's particularly awful. And I was really impressed by the fact that every single additive, every plant or every fruit in the game has its own thing that it makes your character say. So there's enough voice acting to cover every type of possible inclusion you can have in a glass of tea or a cup of tea. So that means there's a lot of character development for your main character herself based on all the voice acting that you get from drinking tea alone and reminiscing over something or something like that. You even have a field guide that will tell you how you grow each individual type of fruit-bearing plant and stuff once you start to use them. And also, it'll tell you what each fruit does, like what flavor it has and what memories it brings up and stuff like that. And this is because sometimes characters don't give you an exact thing that they want. Instead, they say kind of, I want a tea that makes me forget about this pain or something like that. So you have to figure out, okay, how do I do that? Like, what can I grow that will have some sort of pain relieving effect or an effect that makes them think strongly of something else? It's actually more common that customers give you a vague, I want this kind of thing, sort of, rather than a specific fruit that they actually tell you they want that exact thing. That does happen sometimes, but it's definitely more common that they say, I want a tea that does this, or I want a tea that'll make me feel this, and you have to figure out how to actually make it in sort of a puzzle sort of context. And the really cool thing to me about this is there's dialogue for pretty much every possible thing you could have chosen. There's actually unique dialogue for everything. Like, for instance, there's a character that will ask you simply for a tea that has something that you think is valuable in it. Something that you find valuable. It could be anything. It doesn't even have to be edible. It just plop it in there and make some tea that has this valuable thing in it. And that could be all sorts of different stuff in the game. There are trinkets you can find. You can dig stuff up by cutting through weeds and stuff. You can find trinkets, and you can find new teacups that have various different appearances. You can find books and parcels and all sorts of stuff. So there's quite a few different things that you could put in this tea, and there seems to be dialogue for every option. Whatever it is you put in this tea, they will have something to say about. And there are several moments like this where a character will give you more vague instructions about what to create, and they'll have unique dialogue based on what you actually bring them. And then there are some characters that never ask for any tea at all, like, say, Nana, who is a hilarious capitalist old grandma, and she considers you strict competition and sets up a shop right outside of your shop and starts blasting music and stuff. And she talks to you in a bunch of different ways, but never actually requests tea. And over the various interactions with her, you'll learn a lot more about her and why she is the way that she is, and figure out how to sort of make her happy in her own way, because she never actually smiles. But she's a really funny character, and by the time she packs up her shop and moves on and is gone for good, you sort of miss her, because she was fun to have around. There's also a point in the game where a whole bunch of suited businessmen will come into the area and demand coffee, even though you don't have coffee, and you eventually will find this extra-dimensional being that allows you to create coffee. But the funny thing is the coffee beans are huge. You can only carry one of them at a time because they're like loaf of bread size, and you have to actually send them through your dishwasher to clean them up. You have this advanced dishwashing system that's very adorable, and you got to send them through that to clean them up, and then you can use them to brew coffee instead of tea. The real charm of this game is very similar to another excellent indie game called Spiritfarer that is quite a sad, bittersweet experience, but it's also not entirely sad because it's not like crushingly depressing. You are doing a good thing. You just miss them once they're gone. And this game has kind of a similar vibe to that. It's all about this ephemeral journey where while these characters are a part of your world, you're learning about them and you're also using them to learn about yourself. But then eventually they're gone and you move on and you have a new batch of characters. And I find that overall gameplay loop to be extremely satisfying and really charming in this game. There's something that's really enjoyable about solving the problems of all these people's orders and then having them tell you interesting things about themselves as a reward. Because there's no money in this game. You don't get paid for what you're doing. That's not the point of what you're here for. This is, as Nana says, a socialist utopia. So you are here to serve people without money. You're paid in stories and you're paid in character development for all these other characters, and eventually you're paid in realizations about yourself. Because alongside all of the other characters' stories that you will learn about, there is the main character herself who does have a story and things that she's trying to figure out and things that she's trying to do while she's here, and you get to learn about all of that, about who she is, about who she wishes she was, and about how to get there. For a game of this sort, the writing needs to be really, really solid, or else you're going to have kind of a bad time if the writing isn't interesting and good. And in my opinion, the writing in this game is absolutely fantastic. Not only is the voice acting for the main character really good, but also just the writing and dialogue for all of the other characters is charming, it's funny, it's unexpected sometimes, and it's just really interesting in a lot of ways. And this means that a lot of the characters are a joy to talk to, and you want to learn more about them. You want to keep delivering them tea and have another conversation with them because you don't know what they're going to say next. And there are lots of other small details that also add to this world. Like, for instance, there's a book club that's happening that will send you books in the mail to read, and these are actually like well-written, interesting, maybe like 15-page long little booklets, and they're really fun to read. They're really funny, and they have a lot of charm to them. And they add to the feel that you are a part of this interesting world that you're not really seeing most of, but inside of your little island, you at least get some reach into the world by interacting with all these other people. So basically, this is a game where you serve tea, except the tea is sort of a vehicle for self-discovery. Overall, I think Wanderstop is a very charming game. It's got a lot going for it in terms of its writing and its art and everything. It's just it's a very cozy package that is also sort of a deconstruction of the cozy game thing. And while deconstructing the things that you would expect, all of your expectations around this sort of genre, it also manages to deliver you some really excellent stories and character developments for all these other various ephemeral characters that will pass you by as you continue to serve everyone tea. So I have no difficulties recommending this game at all. I think it is well worth its asking price of $25. Its writing really carries it, and that's going to happen in a game like this. That's basically like a visual novel with some gameplay elements. The writing is good enough to actually do that, to keep it above its head and to carry it past the finish line with some really fascinating stuff that is just enjoyable to learn about and really fun to see. So I'll put the link in the description below this video to the Steam store page for Wanderstop if you guys wish to check it out yourselves. Highly recommend it. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.